So this is a little progress report. I haven't been streaming for a while, but I have been working. Just my schedule's been a little crazy. And so I just wanted to show off a little bit of the progress I've made and show what's up. So I think last time I did a stream, I was talking about charts and plots. Have not done a lot of work since then on that part of it. I'm trying to just get the basic tool working. So I decided to focus on that for a little while. I do kind of jump around within things, but I'm trying to jump around within this very small circle. So the tool as it stands now, first of all, I've found that using this environment, it's really nice to have like a, you start with your to-do list and it can just very quickly become your user manual. So we'll get into that in a minute, but I'll just show off a little bit of what I have here. Not just a user manual, but how things work. I think that's kind of interesting. So the idea is that if you really want to dive into how a feature works, there's a page for each thing that kind of like is what I use to write it. Like the notes I took as I was writing or as I was working on that feature. So that's we'll look at that in a little bit. Not all of the system is quite like that, but I think that's going to be a very, very useful feature for people who want to use this tool and want to customize it. So so this kind of like gives someone an insight into how the thing works right from the manual. It's just something I've been interested in for a long time. Anyway, moving on. So you can run it, and you get this little window here. So you've got a canvas on which you can put objects. So you can put, say, a rectangle here. At one point, this was highlighting the current tool, and somehow that stopped working. I'm not entirely sure why, because the code looks right to me. The idea is that you can, for each one of these tools, and for each shape, you can specify, what happens when you put the mouse down, and what happens when you drag, and so on. So it's a little unusual to draw a circle by clicking on the center in drawing programs. Almost every drawing program that I've seen uses the bounding box very much like a rectangle. But the point is that you can do this, and my reason for this, for doing it this way. First of all, I'm going to allow any version of that. But the idea is that I want to. To me, this is not just a drawing tool, but it is a general purpose graphics application, and I would love to be able to do the kinds of scene building that you do in something like GeoGebra, where you're like making geometric constructions. So you define a point, and then you say, well, I want a circle, or I have a line, and I want it to be tangent to a circle through this point. And so then a constructor is not just a coordinates and a radius. It can be any number of constraints. And we do have some of that. So if I look at my demos here, I guess I don't really have a good demo of that particular thing. But you can, when you're building graphs like this, you can, these lines are constrained to always be attached to their corresponding pieces. Anyway, I actually do have a graph tool that's not hooked up to this thing yet. I guess I could put it there. Maybe I should. So let's see. If I say, let me just jump in and do that. So we'll show you kind of like the overall theme of this thing. So I believe that is called a graph. No, that would be, everything is a GS something. So or Game Sketch Lib, or maybe Game Sketch Lab, or maybe some other name like that. But if we say GS graph tool, new. So in theory, if I say self add tool, GS graph tool new, I should get a box right about here that says graph. I could completely screw up, and I've never actually done this live before. So let's see that. That really looks like it should have worked. Why didn't it work? Toolbar, add item, make button for a tool. Tool, scene build, selection. Huh. I wonder if the toolbar is, I bet, I'm just curious now because I bet that really ought to have worked. If I click on this, toolbar, I bet there's a button in there. No, there's not. Huh. I'm a little baffled by that. I really expected that to work. All right, well, in any case, maybe this is broken since I don't know, it shouldn't break. Huh. Let's just draw the app over here. Yeah, there's all these graph tools in here. Why are they added in the... Very suspicious. Maybe toolbar is not defined anymore? It is. And it has the... Now that is interesting. All right, well, that makes me think that it even has the little the line around, right? That makes me think that something really wacky is going on there. All right, well, let's just go ahead and ignore that bug for a minute. And we can just browse this and just add the... Yeah, it started out as a... Yeah, I'm not trying to be a live coding session or live debugging session. I just wanted to show it. All right, so if I run this now, I should say graph up there, and I should be able to drag and drop and so on. And the idea is that if you just click on the background, then you can make a new node, and if you click on an existing one and drop on an existing one, it connects those pieces rather than create a new thing. You can change the color of certain things. Really, when you click on them, they should, yeah. Whatever the selection is should automatically get their colors changed now. You've got text. So if you, clearly there's something wrong with that toolbar, but so you say hello. There's only one font size, but I'm hoping to change that soon. It does have a background color as well. And so you can set that up. You can't remove it now. Or you could, I guess, do this. The nice thing is anything you're doing, you can say self selection do. You can write code to like augment the fact that something is not part of the tool yet. I guess my head's in the way. So you could say, my head's small. You can say, so for each item in the selection, we'll call it X. Then we could say X color, or X background, color transparent. And if I run that, that will clear the color. There you go. And I guess you could do that here as well. There you go. So now you got some transparent boxes. And that would allow you to add colors that are not there. There is going to be an inspector that shows up on the right. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm very close. The idea for that is that we have this, well, maybe I'll just go down this list and show all the things. So the thing that powers the inspector is the same thing that powers loading and saving, because this is built on block, And every element that you see here has like a tremendous number of things attached to it. It's got all the state. Let's see, properties widget. What can I show that? Maybe. Well, there's a bunch of things attached to every item in the scene, right? And you don't want to save all that. So when you want to save it, you want to say something like, so you want to get like some nice JSON format that doesn't include like things that you're not using, like event handlers and whatnot. That Smalltalk would want to serialize if it could, but rather than do that, I'm just serializing something like this. Oh, this is weird. Oh no, right, because this is a different scene. The scene I was working with had this giant page of stuff. So right, so right now the only thing that actually, only a handful of the things are actually being populated. So the fill, you can see this one doesn't even have a position set on it. None of this does. So if I read this and reserialize it, they'd all show up here. The text, for example, is right here, a GS text shape, but it doesn't actually say what the text is. So we can fix that. And that'll show you how the loading and saving works. So if I Control B to browse that word, it will not let me do that from here. Okay. I thought that was a universal shortcut, but maybe not. Control B. Okay, well, we can just say GS text shape. Oh. Yeah, there we go. You can't put a class name in that spot, so it's not parsing as a class name. So what you would do to change this is you would say you want to add a description of that field. So the actual text is called text. But I think, like if you say self text right now, yeah, you can't get that. So what does text do? It's not a setter, it's a view model text. So we say self view model text. Am I not the text shape? Oh, no, all right, so I have to say, I have to inspect a new text shape. There we go. So there, it's called new text now. The text is actually new text, and now if I say self text, yeah, new text. But if I inspect that, it's actually a roped text, so it's not a string. It's not just a string. And if I say self text hello, oh, it does work. Okay, so we can get that as a string. So if we say self text as string, we'll see. Okay, so the point is that we've got this rich object that we want to treat as a simple string for now. Text actually can contain all kinds of rich stuff and coloring and things like that, fonts information. But I'm trying to treat the whole thing as just like a single string and then apply one style to the whole thing at once. I'm not going to do. I may have some other control that allows you to do the rich stuff. I want this to be simple like that. All right, so now what we do is we go into the meta. And if you look at this up here, there should be something called Magritte up here. And of course, there is not. Interesting. What if I browse? Not sure why it's not showing up. But we can add a package to this here, and we can say self or we'll call it just text description. And the idea is that rather than just inspecting the everything that's attached to this class, you're going to provide a description of the class that uses this library called Magritte, and it is going to give you a new MA description, right? MA string description. Yes, MA string description new, and the label is text, and the accessor is text. I think that's it. I think that's all you have to say. And when you save it, I'm a little surprised that we don't have a... Here it is, Magritte descriptions now. Oh yeah, there it is, Magritte. I don't know why it only has one. Because everything should have an ID. It should have inherited some from the base element. But it's not, so I'll worry about that later. I'm a little surprised that it hasn't done that. If I browse that, open here, I would expect to see some extensions up here. In BL element. Oh, maybe I haven't put them there yet. Yeah, I think yeah, right. I did that at first, and then I was like, I'm experimenting, so I've only added these visitor things for circles and the scene. So only scenes and circles can be done. You're right. Right. So I intend to decorate some of the higher level, like the block package itself with some annotations like that. Anyway, okay, so I'm confusing myself. Anyway, the point is that now once you've done this, now you can inspect it and you can get you can generate forms for it and whatnot. Actually, it does say ID on here. We should say text. Should say text because we just added something called text, right? Oh my goodness. I'm a little confused. Magritte descriptions, background description, ID description. Oh, SketchApp, right. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, so this says text, and we can change that now to say bananas. And if we accept it, it should update the actual system. I don't know why that comes up red. Maybe because the thing it got out was not actually a text, but it did change it to bananas. Okay, so now that gives us a way to inspect the, imagine this generated form appearing over here somewhere. I've got a demo of that happening. I'm not sure where it is. Okay. Right, now the point of that was, now that I've added that, when I serialize this thing as JSON, so if I say scene GS.json, it should now say, it's possible that this is not updated yet, and so it won't work. I'm not entirely sure if it'll pick up the change, but I think it will. If I run that, yes, now it says hello. Okay, so it did. So it has learned that new method, and now it has added the new thing. And likewise, this should, each one of these should have an ID, and then when we serialize the line, we want to say from, and then an ID to an ID, and so on like that. So that's what I'm in the process of working on. I basically got loading and saving working last night. So let's actually load a scene that it does work for. So we can say self scene, and then GS scene examples space scene. All right, so there it is. Oh, can I add a child? Yeah, I inspected that, and so now it's trying to make a copy even though it's already added it over here. So that's not what I want. I just want to get rid of that and expand this now. So it's kind of nice that I'm features that don't exist yet, I can prototype them right here in the inspector while the thing is running. I really love that workflow. We can select things, and like one of the things that I started making this particular scene when I was testing the alignment tools. So this is supposed to be a sun with a Earth and a moon going around it, right? And then I was thinking, what if I made it go around like that? And so that's kind of like that. The desire to make that animation is kind of like motivating what order I do things in at the moment. And so I wanted to line them up on the plane of the solar system. Shift click does not work either. So, but if I do this, then I can say, I actually wrote out the code to do this, and I went through and I added this thing called GS Center to everything. And anyway, so if you take the bounding rect and you find the center of that, then that's where it's going to line up all these centers on. And if you run it, then it lines them up. So no matter how I can't actually do that, right? Can I? I can't select them without selecting the stars. But if I put this here and I say selection do v-line centers, then it works. And then the idea was just be very careful. So I want to be able to not select these stars or whatever. So the plan is to put them in layers and have those layers locked. But well, anyway, I can also move this to the top. So bring to front, that's the same kind of thing. We just take it out of the scene, add it back to the scene, and it comes up on the end. So we run that, then they all move to the front. Now they're in front of all these other things, and I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling here on it. The point is that most of these tools I've added them by just writing code down here, and then once I got it working, I encapsulate them in a method. I've created this selection object that used to be just a list, so now the selection can do lots of things. Like it says, display handles on click. Every object can do that. I don't know what the line object does when you select on it. Does it give you 2 points? No, it just gives you this. This is not actually a good selection tool, but it should pop up some handles. I don't have a delete tool, but if I want to delete that, well, I can say delete selection, remove from parent, and then select shapes, nothing. Actually, we can say we don't need the select tool anymore. We can just say reset. As long as I have the latest version of the code here, which I hope I do. Oh, I don't. That would explain maybe why I'm missing some code I thought was there. Am I hallucinating that I put this in there? I think I restarted this image and I didn't upgrade to. Yeah, that's why. Okay. I hope I don't lose all this stuff, but we'll see. Actually, some of those might be things that I already checked in, and then, yeah, okay. Actually, that it used to just wipe everything out and forget about them. Okay, so that was my trouble. I don't have the best workflow or reproducible stuff here. I tend to keep reusing the image rather than updating it every day like they do, the people who make this. I know I'm rambling here. My thought in making some of these pages is that it can be less rambly, and that's part of why I haven't done a lot of streaming lately. Because when I do this, I'm just I'm just doing saying whatever comes to mind, waiting for this to pause, and it's not very organized, and I get distracted by bugs and stuff. Whereas if I as I'm working, if I say, well, I'm working on this, let's, every time I think about a particular task, I can put my notes into one of these pages. And then as I go along, I'm creating these artifacts, right? So, okay, so load and save scenes, for example, that's what I was talking about. Like this is a fairly recent example. I just got this saving and running last night. But so as I was working on that, I came up with this idea of a GS JSON writer, and so as I did it, I documented, hey, well, I'm putting this here, and this is the main thing. But what it really does is it creates a GS JSON writer, and it says write self, and description is self. So this is, as I was working, I wrote this page, and then I would click on this, and then hit Control V, and then it would bring up this page. And so now, as I'm working on my, I have my context on the page, I can talk about, I can look at the code and browse it. So these are all the methods on this class, and it's inheriting from Magritte writer, so MA writer. And if you look at the class hierarchy, that's like a bunch of objects up there, and eventually it's a visitor that visits all those descriptions. So when you create those methods, there's something that looks at your class and says, okay, or look, you give it an object, it says, look at the class of that object, look at all the methods in there, see which ones are annotated with Magritte description, and then use that to put together a description of the object. And then now that's a tree of things, because the object has subcomponents and so on, especially like for the scene. And so you have a contain, the instance basically through that process generates a Magritte container that has all these properties in it, and some of those might actually be like references to other, like the scene has references to shapes, and so that's a list of other things that you want to inspect, and so you get this big giant tree of the whole of everything in the scene, and then you can walk that tree with different things. So the writer and the reader walk those trees, and so the GS JSON writer uses this framework that is provided by MA writer and everything up in the hierarchy to visit these descriptions. And then the question is, what do you do when you hit those things? So when you visit a container, that's like GS scene or GS circle. Well, we're going to put a curly brace, and we're going to say, what class is it? So put key is like it's writing JSON, right? So it's gonna put the $ double quote. That means put that character quote double quote. Put the string, the key as a string, and then put the and the quotes and a colon and so on. So basically, write JSON. And then when you do it with a value, then it does the same thing, and it also puts the value as a string, and so it builds a JSON object or JSON string. And that's basically how it works. So that a couple of the things have specific logic that probably should be in some kind of new description class. Like as far as I can tell, whenever you give an object an ID, you pass it a symbol, but by default it doesn't have a symbol. It has BL element no ID, and when you give it a symbol, it has a BL element symbol ID or something like that. I don't know what it's actually called. Probably BL element ID. I don't know. It's not just a symbol, but it looks like a symbol. Same thing with relation description. A relation would be like a list of items, but it's not really a list. It's not an ordered collection. It's a BL children collection or something like that, for a block children collection. But anyway, this tells the thing what to do when you encounter those each of those nodes in the description. And as you're doing that, you always have a reference to the object called object, and so you can say, "Hey, give me the actual value by reading this." Tell the description to read its relevant property from the object, from the given object, and so that gives you a bunch of values. And then if that value is not empty, so this would be the list of children, Then we loop through them and you know, do some bookkeeping to make sure you don't put a comma in front of the first one and so on. And then we do some indentation and so on. So basic stuff. When it visits an element is it's entirely possible I'm using this wrong. I got it working and I may be using some of the pieces wrong. The default visitor, like everything relates to visit element, and then that relays to just visit description and so on. And nothing ever does anything. It's just a bunch of, it's just a shell for you to put your own visitor in. And so it's entirely possible I don't have this right, but yeah. So again, the background is a complex object. A background isn't just a color in block. It's a it could be procedural. It could be a thing that generates a background or something like that. It could be all kinds of things. You could have an old school morph. The previous GUI library be your background, I believe. Things like that. So I'm instead just treating it like it's a fill color, something much more simple. So I'm trying to abstract that, and this is probably not the right way to do it, but it was enough to get it working. And so basically, really, just these three were enough to handle all the items that I encountered so far. So like I just added. Well, I mean, like radius is a number. Well, that just bubbles up to visit element description, and so you can override visit number description or visit string description and so on. Like we may need to put some special logic in for strings here. I guess we didn't for the writer. So then, so I have these really ought to be like tests and examples and stuff, and I should probably do that. But just right in here, as I was doing it, I made some little test cases and I ran them manually. Definitely probably ought to do it a different way, but they say nil because nothing, the test passed. So then let's see, this is more complex. Oh yeah, so first I did it just for the circle. I got a circle to make this. And then I said, okay, now we need to nest it. So, and the scene has a background color. Even though you don't specify it, it has like here you don't specify it either. But it has every shape has this white background color by default. If you don't, choose a color, but the scene has this color by default. So you have to fill that in, and then whatever. Here's the center. Looks like a point. I set it up to do these hex strings. That was in the writer class as well. I think that's, where was that here? Oh yeah, explicitly, right? So I say explicitly just save it as a hex string. The relation description was a little more complicated, and this is just another version of that code. You're just seeing the same code here. These are in sync. I have never seen this view before. I don't know what I pressed. That was neat. Huh. Okay, well, I'm a little surprised that they're not in sync. Definitely, if you put something in here like and you hit the check mark button, it'll update here. But they're not, I guess, live. I was expecting them to be exactly live, but I guess maybe that was unrealistic. All right. Anyway. Yeah, so this is just showing like how you build that JSON list. I guess yesterday I thought that would be useful to have as a note, but okay, maybe I don't have to show that code. So then how do you read them back? I didn't put a lot of notes in here. Probably should have. But now to read that thing back. So first of all, so here's the JSON I was working with, like a big complicated thing. Yeah, I guess I didn't really follow this scene. I did put some notes in the comment here, I think, on this one. Yeah. So the visiting strategy is a little weird here. We read the JSON to get a dictionary that we can inspect. So if you read the JSON, you parse the JSON, get a JSON, dictionary with other dictionaries inside of it, list of dictionaries inside of it. And then like everything else, like if there's a color, it's a string. If it's a point, it's serialized to a string, and so on. And then we store a class name or something to indicate the class. I'm probably not going to. So if we open this, you can see it says GS circle shape. Probably that should say circle, and there should be a lookup table. But I just did the simplest thing I could last night to just put the class name in there. And so then we instantiate that thing. We have an empty vessel into which to put this data, and then we inspect that class, the instance, and say, give me your Magritte description. And so from that, we can now figure out what. I mean, you can just look at the dictionary and see what attributes are in there, but you can say, what attributes do we care about? And more importantly, how do we handle each one of them? So the scene has a fill, and the fill attribute really calls background, right? And so just like I did a hack here, and again, really this should be by creating my own Magritte description class. But instead, I just put the logic in here because I was just trying to get something working. So when I look at the GS-JSON reader, this is, if I hit browse on this class, right, and then if I browse this here, yeah, there's a copy button. That's what I'm looking for. Copy, and then if I say GT class and then paste that in there, now I have the hyperlink to this. Is basically a mirror image. Is basically a mirror image, but mirror image. And I just want to put something in here that we parse the JSON. I'll just copy this even. Yeah. Just have that in the same place. Okay. So probably the right way. You can't clear this once it's done. Huh. Yeah, okay. I don't think there's... Yeah, whatever. I don't think you can make it come over here, can you? Oh, maybe. No. All right, whatever. Anyway, so you get the JSON object, and then you have to walk the JSON object. So you're doing two tree traversals that simultaneously, and you're kind of zipping them together. So one, you're walking the JSON data that you're trying to parse, and then you're simultaneously walking the description that says what is here. So it's kind of like a grammar interpreter or what I think of as a grammar interpreter for grammars, but except for this object model or this description model. I call it a meta model. Anyway, so and then I had to implement the same three things. So visit container. Well, there's nothing to actually do here. We've already got the object, the fake object, because we looked at it. And when you visit the object, walk the object, we have a stack that we're keeping of where we are in the hierarchy of objects we're building. And we start building this new object, and we visit it, and we create a new, we look at the class, and then we say as class, and then we instantiate it, so that's our new object. And so then that's the context that we're going to be putting stuff into. That's so then we visit its description. So it's empty, but but the class itself knows, its class knows how to describe it. And so then we can say, oh, we've got a form to fill out. And then as we walk through that, that's the visit, the visit things. And so the visit is going to say, well, we had just visited a container to trigger this. or no, sorry. So this right here, self-visit, that description is going to trigger this and says, well, just visit all your children. The children of the container is the members of the container. So then for each element that, each slot to fill out on the form. So the container is like the form, and these are the fields, and then we're going to, for each one of these, we're going to do something to it. And basically what we do is we say, what is the selector, for that on the class that we're filling in, and then look to see if there's a similarly named attribute in the dictionary, in the JSON dictionary. So this is the dictionary from JSON and at key, and if it's present, then we do this, because it might not be filled in. The thought is that if it's a default value, it should be blank. So like right now, it's showing the white, the FF0, FFF everywhere. That should not be emitted. But I haven't yet tested it for the default. Then I guess I got some note here about like one of these was I'm sorry, this was relation description. Right. So yeah. So this is the simple case. Read the selector. If that key happens to be background, then we do something special. Again, because I haven't, I should have made a different kind of element description. But otherwise, just get it. If that key is present in the dictionary, then read it and then stick it in into the object using the selector. So that's what read from does. Oh, sorry, no. This is saying what is the kind of the slot. So what class goes in that slot? Read that class from the string. Read from is built into Smalltalk, and then and so that's how. So point is able to read the parentheses and the number and the @ sign and the other number in the parentheses. And so then once we have the value, we use the description to write the value to the object, and that's built into the framework. Okay, so that's rambly. And then the special case again was the visit the relation, because then you have to loop through the array, the JSON array, and then fill in each of the elements of the the children array. And it turns out you have to call add child. You can't just say get the children and then call add on it each time, because of this error right here. So I think that's the general case. That's what I did in the first place, and then I kind of backed up a little bit. This is the only collection I've. We'll have the same issue when you get to points. You got to do something special with all with a path, with all the points in the path. Anyway, I think I'm kind of rambling here. That was a little more detailed than I probably should have made that a separate video specifically about Magritte. Maybe I'll do that. But yeah, I guess I'd previously been making a point that this kind of serves as the template. One of these pages can kind of serve as a template for a talk. And also, I'm hoping that they can kind of tell a story. So I really like that style of development. I like that I'm doing that. Let's see what I can do. I'll just go through these real quick. Display handles. Yeah, some of these are real small. Like you just how does it work? Well, there's this thing called GS handles. And the default handler is a resizer. And then those get added to the tool overlay in GS select tool click. But that's not actually true anymore. It's actually in if I click on this, I should edit this as I go along. I probably shouldn't edit this as I go along, but it's actually in draw selection box. No, redraw selection. Right. Redraw selection. which is the callback set up for selection changes in this method right here. And so if I say GT method. Yeah, so that's not in sync anymore. And that's a little unfortunate. Like, it just doesn't, that's a problem with documentation in general. Things change. I don't have a good answer for that. But maybe, they are timestamped, so maybe you could see how they work. And of course, I guess the answer is to do what I'm doing now and just, keep taking passes through them, and hopefully the design settles down at some point. And maybe to be more disciplined about using these as the working area when you do things. But I don't know. All right, so display handles on shape click, display text with GS text tool, great. All right, so we saw that it serialized the thing. So we need to add, serialization or Magritte descriptions for the font size and that kind of stuff. And then once we do that, I kind of like to do that like very, very quickly, because I think that, except it's not quick, because font size isn't just a simple attribute. It's you have to apply it to a range of text, right? And so that's not quite ready yet. I'd have to write my own accessors for it and so on. Okay, so forget that. I mean, I'll do it, but I'm not going to do it live on stream here. All right, so we've got text, we've got set the shape interactively. So another thing that's broken here. I think I need to do some like critics, that say like, maybe even put some tests in here, and when those tests fail, now I've got doc test, right? So, obviously you can't test the English part of it, but I wonder if you could test, I've been doing a lot of work with like ChatGPT at work. I wonder if you could have it periodically test your documents and look for things that are out of date, things that might have changed, things that don't seem to follow the description. Being able to put the code directly inside seems to give you the option of saying, hey, does this description actually match this comment, or does this comment actually match this code? And if not, maybe it's out of date, and if so, flag it. And then that could be something you could run periodically. Actually, I'm going to write that down, like documentation out of date checker. So text documentation out of date checker. All right. Okay. That's my $1 million business idea. You just heard it here first. All right. So set the colors interactively. Draw lines and curves with the mouse. Curve shape just has not existed yet. We do have line shape. The curve is going to be for Bezier curves. It's entirely possible that I won't use Smalltalk's objects and classes for these things. I was thinking about, well, I'll get to it down here when I talk about I overwrote this page, right? I overwrote this page when God dang it. It wasn't checked out of. Dang it. I need a better workflow for that. I need it to tell me that I'm out of date. Like if this is ever out of date, it needs to have a big red button up at the top that says, do not use this image. But it's right there. Ah, see, it's not in the database. Look at that. That's so weird. Something's very wrong here. That's a bug. It doesn't even know what database it's in. It does not understand databases. Interesting. All right, so I need to restore this. And so if I switch to Markdown, and I save it, and I come back live, okay, now, oh, come on. Can't update it that way? Store string. Okay, well, okay, let me, what do I do about this? This is broken. I don't want to lose my data, and it seems like I've got it in this weird state where I may or may not have access to it in the future. This really should not be part of the stream, but I'm just going to back this up real quick. You know, this is development, right? You never know what you're going to get. New. I make a new folder in Obsidian. I'm in Obsidian here. Leopard save notes. Leopard rescue. I know you can't see this. New note. Markdown. Save this. Whatever. That actually is a valid change. Camera objects, I had notes about that. Rescue, new note. Camera objects. Context menus, nodes, children, if. Oh, I have to browse it, right? Context menu, browse. Okay, that's useless. All right, so I won't worry about that. And what's different here? Nothing, so we can revert that change. But I had also added it. I added GS text. Oh, come on. Is this? That was before I did the update, wasn't it? GS text shape. And I added a method here, and now it's gone. All right, well, I can recover that. I can't recover Leopard like that. This stream is not going well, is it? I've lost the thread. Completely recover latest. This was entirely my fault. But No, this is the current system. I want to recover latest here. I don't see what the difference is. I see that this should not say and, but okay. Oh, there is no difference. This is just what was at the end of the... Oh, I lost it. This is what I lost when I said... When I hit that update button. Yeah, that was all from before. This is the only one I lost. All right, so if I apply this, I should have that method now, right? And then when I come back, TS-Pharaoh, it should be right here. You can't really do just this. Is okay. If I orphaned a page, it's not a big deal. All right, I'm going to say commit. Let's toggle. Oh, I added this button here. And it got committed to the repo. It's a little buggy when you have a long list, but commit. So text description, add text description for add greet description for text. GS text shape text. And then I'm going to commit this and call it Leopard Rescue. And see if it saves. Right. I'll just run this again. That might have been a bad idea. I hit the load Leopard button as this is already existing in the... Okay, I don't have 2 copies of TS-Pharaoh. That's good. And there's all my notes about everything. Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about, the different ways you can define a circle. Or I was trying to talk about this. Right now I do the center and the radius. I'd like to be able to do constructions like in GeoGebra. And it doesn't even make sense to use a class called GS Circle. I don't know if that's necessary or not. It's certainly not necessary in block. You have a node has a geometry that is a circle, and it has a position and so on, and it has constraints, and I don't know, maybe you can just build this up at runtime and you don't need a class for it. So I don't know. Maybe you have a bunch of little classes that you compose, which is kind of more in line with the block philosophy anyway. And so maybe the description is something you compose at runtime, and you can choose to have, the set of points be, a different thing. I don't know. That's something I'll have to look into. Okay. All right. So. Right. So now this if I say geometric constraints. Yeah. Now it's there. Okay. All right, so what was on my list? Combine shapes into, oh, I'm still going down here. Draw on curves, you can do that, move shapes forward and backwards. So this is not actually implemented, but, oh right, it is implemented, but it's not implemented in the UI. So you have to run these commands. And I need to get a way to, like, once you create one of these, to be able to add it to the list of things you can do with a selection. I'm kind of picturing a situation where you've got a left-hand side, very, very much like Godot. You have a left-hand side tree of what's in your scene, and it would show, like, a circle, show like little tiny previews of, kind of like, not that. So I put the word nil after this, so if I accidentally run that, then it inspects the nil and not another copy of the scene and give me that error. All right, so now when I say children, I'm not sure why that doesn't show up in here. Because the scene is a child of the SketchApp. Is there an arrow here that I can't see? No? Oh, maybe this only shows your direct children. But it doesn't show any children. I'm confused. Yeah, so like scene actually shows all the children. I don't know. Anyway, so this would show up, these little previews would show up in the drop. Basically this view would show up on the left, except instead of type, it would show the ID. It actually does show the ID here. It says scene and it says nil for every one of those IDs because they don't have IDs. But the idea, but you would have this, and then maybe you wouldn't have this on, but each layer would have the picture of the layer, and then everything in the scene, everything inside of it, and you would be able to likewise with groups. And so maybe it would say like circle or whatever, you show the ID and things like that, and then you'd be able to rename it right from that menu. So that would be on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, there would be an inspector, a Godot-style inspector or a Magritte-style inspector, where you got this. Yeah, I'm doing that for the children. I don't want to do that for the children. So let's do so if I want to inspect this sun-looking thing, then I would get this view, where you have the center, you have the radius, and then you have the name. So if I give this name sun, I would expect this to show the sun. It does not. But if I run this again and I look at this view, yeah, now it says sun. So that just didn't update in real time. But the idea would be that you would get that, and then when you could see, I'm not going to put these development tools will be there under the hood, but they shouldn't be the first thing you see. You shouldn't be going into this this view right here with the pagers and all that. I just want so you can put I chose to put this in a flow for development reasons. So the flow is the pager thing. But you can also just have a full screen app, and you don't see any tabs appear. You don't see anything like that. I got to get rid of this button because it isn't a pager, but you don't need the pager is optional basically. Although actually in this thing, the idea is that when you click on say week, you actually get a new page, right? And then potentially you could even drag and drop across or something. Anyway, and this is also being built with the same framework. So the idea is you'll be able to have applications like this that are just kind of like, your scene doesn't have to be inside of a sketch. You could take your scene and make it into an icon for one of these tabs or something like that. So I look forward to the point where I can start designing user interfaces using the drawing tool, and then it should just work. Like, you should be able to do that. I'm pretty sure if I say I know I'm just off on a tangent here, but let's see what would be what if we say Magritte? So what does this do? Magritte? All right, so if I look at that view, so if I say self as Magritte view model as element, that's what I did. Let's do that. That's the stencil they're using. All right, so if I just say scene, add child, first I have to get the sun, right? I want the sun. So sun equals scene child with ID sun. And if I run that, I get the sun. It's a preview. There it is. And if I add the child, now if I say instead of self, I want to say sun as element. Background color very, very light gray. I expect if I run this, it's going to pop up like right up here, and I'll be able to drag it around. That inspector will be able to do that. Let's run it. Insets. Oh, right. The insets does not understand. That's why I was getting that error. Right, so if I run it there we go. It's there. I can drag it around. The view model for. I'm not sorry. The view model. The visitor that builds the forms in. There's no palette control, so it doesn't have one for color yet. But I can add that, so I'm going to add that. But so now if I want to make it like smaller or something like that. Oh, come on. I see the problem. The problem is there's an overlay here. All right, so we got to delete that. Yeah, so there's an overlay, and the overlay is like a piece of glass over the thing. So even though it's there, if I change this right here, if I go into the Magritte view and I change the name of the sun to star, and I click check, that should update. It's a live object. Oh. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, it is live. It did update that, but I guess it just doesn't know to update it. It's not live. It doesn't know to listen for changes. I just assumed it would. All right, so I can delete that. The point is, you can put objects in the scene, and actually, if I say. If I look at this view now and I say scene, remove from parent, and I render that, I should be able to see it over here now, and I should be able to get the live view. And now I'm not in the app anymore. And so now I can change the radius to 55. And it should get small. But I think this is a problem. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, see, the round tripping on the symbol is wrong. It needs to get rid of that that hash tag. So if I click that, there we go. So that's what the inspector experience should look like. That's interesting. I really like this. It surprises myself that I'm surprising myself that I can do these things in the tool, and I just think about them and they work, right? Even though they're clunky, but like the basic idea works. You can get at this inspector if you want. So it shouldn't be too long before that's in the tool integrated. And the idea is that, again, so now I have to close this again. I have to tell it to remove it from the parent, and then if I do that, just reassign. That should reattach it. And now it's dead again. Yeah. Yeah. So I get there's some work to do there. I got to say, like, maybe I'm not sure that like some things you need to be able to mark things as being something that spawn in the overlay or something. Actually, that's entirely possible. We can fix that. I'm going to wrap this up in a minute. We can delete that selection, and rather than adding it to the scene, we can say as element, and we can say add event handler, BL pull handler, new. So that'll make it draggable, and we can say overlay. Now it's draggable, and that's interesting. I gotta say that's consumed, right? Yeah, and then as soon as you click, it's gonna go away because it clears the overlay. Add event handler BL handler new on when BL mouse event do, and then E consumed, and then that should block it. That should prevent it from it's consume. Although now that consume true. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. My little baby's screaming about something over there. Might have to go. My wife is here now. She's throwing a tantrum. So if I run that, okay, so I can. Right. So now, so we got to fix that, and we can move that to like 50 at 50. Should move it over here somewhere, and the radius will be 25, and that should just touch the upper left-hand corner. When I click it, there we go. So now, let's say instead of sun, selection first. So oh, this is awesome. Because you'll just be able to inspect anything you want. Oh, subscript out of bounds. Oh, because nothing's selected. Yeah, right. So we got to do that. So say selection, if not empty. I was thinking that, and I was like, no, I would never be so foolish as to press that button when I don't have a selection, and then immediately pressed it. Okay, so then this, we click it, it goes away. Click this. Boom, there's an inspector for it. Why is it? Actually, we want padding, right? I don't know why I margin it like that. And then let's just put it at relocate 50 at 50, or 10 at 10 or something like that. That is the margin. All right, and it's pullable, so we can drag it around. There we go. Boom. All right, so this one can go away. Run it. Oh, inspect, and then you get this on. And we can make this 250. So I got to fix that if I want this to be usable. Ooh, that's actually probably about the right size, right? Obviously, it's way bigger than that, right? Done. The thing goes away. You click on this, run it, and now we can tell it that this is called the Earth. Right, and we need to fix that. And then you close this. That doesn't do anything. Close this can't. But now if I double, there's no double clicking, but yeah, and it remembers what it was. That's awesome. I really like that. Anyway, but the point is that this would appear on the right hand side, and then the thought was, what I'm kind of thinking is, it would include some commands that you could give it, and they would just be buttons that you could do to this thing, in addition to all the all the stuff. So things like move it to the front, right? So here we could say send to back, bring to front. And then these would just be commands that would be over there, and they may or may not have icons, and they may or may not be grouped in certain ways, and so on. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. The sun needs to be on the top. You don't have stars in front of the sun. Yeah, so I'm going to keep playing with this scene. I kind of like the idea of using the scenes to drive, drive what I'm programming. Because like this makes me want to, like what I just did, like having the inspector there was on the list, but I didn't expect to live code it, and I certainly didn't expect it to be that quick and easy. I have had it on the screen before, but I didn't think it was. That's just really cool. Anyway, okay. Is there anything I wanted to talk about else? Let's see. So if you want to make your own little home section like that, this is known now. So load and save, display handles on shape click. That's easy. Create text with GS text tool. Edit GS shapes interactively. Draw lines and curves with the mouse. Move shapes and forward and backward. Align select shapes. Combine shapes into groups. And that's what I'm working on. So this is all to do now. I've got some notes about how to do that. Probably just, I don't know. There's some thoughts about like whether groups, like can groups span layers and things like that. I don't know. Render GSL charts and plots. So that's still where I was at before. I haven't done a lot on here. I haven't done anything on here in like weeks. I don't even know what this will do. Yeah, so that's still definitely happening. Yeah, I'm just reading. So draw connected graphs with the mouse. I did show that. Edit shape with an inspector. Do I have the example code? No, I don't. Okay, it just says this can be done with Magritte. Yes, I just demonstrated that. So if I do, when it's quieted down here and I'm off the stream, I'll go back and hopefully polish that up a little bit and make that like part of the UI. I don't know. Probably they won't pop up in space like that. They'll probably just be on the right-hand side. draw grids and axes. That's part of the plots and stuff. I mean, actually, I want the grids and axes even in the, the like a ruler tool. But and then you should be able to toggle those on and off as like an overlay. Copy, paste, and delete shapes. So now that we have the selection, that should be easy. In fact, I think that's what this says. It might be easy now that we have the selection. Because now you can copy it. You can copy it as JSON and paste it as JSON, something like that. Show context menu on right click. I don't have that working, but I think I have a demo of that somewhere in some other file somewhere. Layout, shapes, selected shapes and nodes. So this is interesting. This is not just a line, but rather like you've got 15 objects. Lay them out. The way like in a table or a row or a column or something like that. And I think that would be interesting to have. And then more importantly, when they're connected nodes, lay them out as a tree, lay them out as, a force-directed graph, a radial tree, a tree, the graph layouts are the interesting stuff there. Snapping to a grid, that's very easy. I think you can even just do that on the overlay. You just, when you send the mouse event to the tools, you just round, just round it. Browse the scene as a tree. That's having the thing on the left. Inner style text, change the font for text shapes. All right, so that's yeah, right. I wanted to do a text size and I can't do it right. It's not easy to do that. It's not trivial. It's a little bit of work to do that. Yeah, arrange text nodes into because yeah, you want it for like a span, right? A text span. It should be like I think a text. If I have this correct in SVG, a text can contain text spans, and the text spans have the attributes applied to them, and then the text as a whole has attributes applied to it. And then if you want to like make a word bold, then you would have a T-span inside the text or something like that. I think that's how that works. And so I may do something like that here. And then have a text layout strategy that gives it like a flow layout strategy, which is how block works. I would imagine that's how block works. Except I haven't seen the low level text things. It's always rope text is just always I don't know, whatever. Okay, arrange text nodes into lists and outlines. That's more for UI stuff, not really a drawing tool. This is all like the whole framework. Change the font, add images to see. Oh yeah, images and sprites are like sprite sheets are high on my list. Fill shapes with color gradients. Navigate between scenes. And navigate between scenes is to make it a little more like HyperCard or something like that, where you can have multiple scenes and click a button and go to another scene. That wouldn't be part of the scene. The SketchApp, but part of like a presentation system, like a slideshow or anything. There's a slideshow tool built into Glamorous Toolkit here, and that could be the start of something, or make my own little thing or whatever. Yeah, I think I've talked about Decker before on this channel, and my friend John has made this really awesome like HyperCard clone. It makes me want to make, it looks like HyperCard from the 1980s, but it's got a modern language and all that. And I kind of want to make a high res version of that in here as part of like a game engine or something, like a HyperCard like engine, as one of the like scripting languages. But the nice thing about Lil, the scripting language, is it appears to be completely synchronous. Like if you want to do an animation, you can just write the animation, and if your script runs out of time on a frame, it has a budget, and if it runs out of time, it just continues on the next frame. And so that's really neat. And so you don't have to write a lot of event handling and on frame and that kind of stuff. So some kind of animation that might be quite interesting. Yeah, I just like it. It's kind of a interesting language in that it's meant to be very user friendly. So it has like almost no error messages because you can't make errors, right? And so I don't know if that's a good thing or not, right? It's not as like it just does what you say and it doesn't break, but you may not understand what it does, and so that it doesn't break as in it doesn't throw an error. And so the thought was that would be more user friendly, and the scripts that you write would tend to be pretty small anyway, and I don't know, seems to work. I enjoy using it, but I do wonder about that, and maybe it needs like a linter tool or something, like a hard mode, advanced mode. That might be interesting. I mean, I have to write it from scratch anyway, but I do have a virtual machine that I've written in other languages and would also have to port to Smalltalk. That the hope would be that you could run programs on it with that style and not have to worry about animation frames and cramming it into a GUI system. But even completely independent of that, just navigating between scenes and being able to click a button and go to a new scene, I think that would be great. So maybe even having buttons, buttons and widgets, but that's a whole other update. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm done rambling here. Thanks for watching. I do plan to make some videos in the near future that are, this is all about helping me get to the point where I can make videos that are the way I want them and like they're, planned and written, and then they look nice. So that's what I'm really working towards, and I'm not straying from that path, and I don't know when I'll have time to stream again, but yeah, that's my update on where I'm at, and stay tuned for more. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again. I can't say soon, but whenever it happens. Adios. It's still streaming. That's so weird. Your stream will stop immediately. Okay, bye.